I got my iced tea. Grab your beverage. Let's go. Hey, this is Steve, your favorite old retired search and rescue pilot. I'm here today to talk about a topic that is probably going to trigger some people, and hopefully not you, because today we're going to explore how our core beliefs shape our reality and why some of those beliefs might actually be holding us back. We'll talk about challenging those beliefs and look at ways to break free from limiting ones. As a boomer old fart, I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm here to share what I've learned and listen to what you have to share. I want to hear. Now, just a heads up, in today's discussion, I'm going to use some examples that touch on sensitive topics like religion. I could have just as easily talked about other hot button issues like politics, but the goal here isn't to tell you what to believe, but to spark thought and a conversation and maybe make us all think outside of our comfort zones. Have you ever felt 100% right about something only to find out later you might have been off course? I mean, me too. It happens to all of us. By the end of this, you'll see why it's important to keep an open mind and how doing so can lead to a happier, more fulfilling life. And that's not BS. Hey, whether you're a fellow senior with tons of life experience or someone younger trying to figure things out, we're all in this together. This is a safe place. And this subject is important because I want to leave a legacy for my granddaughter and maybe spark some conversation with my fellow seniors along the way. And I'd love to hear what other seniors think about these issues. Your experiences matter. And hey, before we dive in, I just wanted to remind you that your support means the world to this old pilot. If you're enjoying the content, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It matters to YouTube and it matters to me. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below because I love hearing from all of you. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to keep sharing these old guy insights videos with you. So now let's get back to our discussion. Let's kick things off by talking about how our core beliefs can sometimes limit us, making us so convinced we're right that we forget we might also be wrong. It's like thinking you're on a smooth flight and then suddenly hitting unexpected turbulence. It throws you off, doesn't it? But hey, no big deal. Being wrong is just another part of our charm, right? As I say in my life, I've always reserved the right to be wrong. And here's the thing. Sometimes we're sure we're right because of something called confirmation bias. But it's important to remember that challenging beliefs, especially those that are self-limiting, can lead to real growth. Recognizing this can help us see things from a new angle. Now, here's a question for you to ponder. When was the last time you strongly held a belief only to later discover evidence that challenged it? How did that make you feel? And take a moment to really think about that. Challenging our beliefs is like trying a new recipe. It might be uncomfortable at first, but it could lead to a delicious discovery. Our backgrounds and past experiences shape how we see the world. If two people come from very different backgrounds, they might look at the same event and come to a completely different conclusion. That doesn't mean one is right and the other is wrong. It just means they're seeing it through their own lenses. This can be tricky in disagreements, but it also offers a chance for growth. First, let's admit it's not always easy to change a belief, especially those self-limiting beliefs that have been guiding us like autopilot for years. But breaking free from limiting beliefs can feel exhausting, but it is possible when we're willing to challenge them. Now, here's a quick exercise for you. Think of a strongly held belief you have now. Come up with 3 reasons why that belief might not be entirely accurate. This isn't about changing your mind, but about practicing flexible thinking. Give it a try. Next time you're in a disagreement, ask yourself, am I really sure about this, or am I just stuck in my own head? Is this just something I was told, or is it something I know from evaluating the facts? It's like checking your flight instruments. Sometimes you've got to double check to make sure you're still on course. I mean, who hasn't thought they were on the right path only to end up, let's say, somewhere very unexpected? Let me tell you about a time when I thought I was dead right, only to realize I'd missed the mark completely. One time back in college in the late 1970s, I thought I had it all figured out. I went to school in Louisiana because the girl I was head over heels for was there. That's always the best reason to choose where to go to college, right? Who needs a solid education plan when love is on the line? Anyway, on my way back from Maryland, I picked up a black friend in Mississippi and then stopped to pick up my girlfriend in Arkansas so we could all get back to the same college together. When I got to her town, her very religious family hit me with, "We don't hang out with those types of people. Get rid of them or you can't see our daughter." I was floored. I mean, how could they be both devout Christians and so blatantly racist? Now, I realize this might be hitting close to home for some of you, and that's okay. We've all had experiences that don't sit well with us. And you might be curious how I wound up handling this absolute mess. From my girlfriend's hometown in Arkansas, it was about 2 hours further on to school. After getting that lecture, I had to think long and hard about what to do. I didn't want to disrespect my friend. We were good friends, and I also wanted to keep things peaceful with her family. So I discussed it with him, and we agreed it might be best if I just spent the rest of the night driving him to school and then turning right around and coming back to pick her up. It wasn't the easiest decision, but I felt like the right one at the time. I managed to make it back before dawn and even got an hour or so sleep before picking up my girlfriend. At the time, I had a t-shirt idea that I've never forgotten. It's a bright yellow t-shirt that proudly said, "Bigots for Christ." Seemed like it summed up the situation perfectly. And here's a shocker that won't surprise you at all. The relationship didn't last. Now, I'm not saying this to offend anyone, but rather to share how experiences like this shape our understanding of right and wrong. This situation is a classic example of how our personal backgrounds and emotional states can lead to completely different interpretations of the same event. For them, they were upholding what they believed to be right based on their cultural and religious upbringing. For me, it was a clear-cut case of racism. These kinds of differences happen more often than we think, and if we let them trigger us, it can lead to conflict and division rather than understanding and growth. That experience taught me a lot about how people can hold on to beliefs that are a little off course. It's a reminder that we all have blind spots, and recognizing them is key to personal growth. Let's take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever been in a situation where your values clashed with someone else's? I mean, how did you handle it? What did you learn from that experience? Let's talk about something we all face, the fear of being wrong. It's like flying through thick clouds without your instruments. It's scary, right? But hey, what could possibly go wrong? In fact, acknowledging that you might be wrong and being open to a belief transformation, especially breaking free from limiting beliefs, is a sign of true strength. It's like keeping a steady hand on the controls during turbulence. Cool, calm, and collected. Because, panicking in the middle of a storm always works wonders. The thing is that when we let those differences in interpretation trigger us, it can lead us to a whole lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety. Instead of seeing the other person as wrong, what if we saw it as an opportunity to learn something new? It's like navigating through turbulence, not comfortable, but it makes you a better pilot. And guess what? Up next, we'll be diving into how to recognize when you're headed into a storm and how to adjust your course before things get too rough. Earlier, we talked about how different backgrounds shape how we see things. And this is where it really comes into play. When we let these differences trigger us, it can lead to a lot of unnecessary stress and conflict. But what if we approach these moments with empathy? We might find a way to connect instead of clash. And where you grew up, the challenges you faced, the lessons you've learned, they all shape how you see the world. For instance, someone raised in a big city might have a different view on transportation or safety than someone from a small town. Now, speaking of transportation, here's a funny story. Let me share this one with you. Back in the late 1970s, I was passing through Fayetteville, North Carolina, and found myself behind a bus from the Fayetteville Area Rapid Transit System. Now, it seems that nobody recognized that the abbreviation spelled farts, but there it was, big as day, on the back of the bus. Different experiences, different perspectives, and sometimes a good laugh helps. It doesn't mean one view is right and the other is wrong. They're just different perspectives shaped by different experiences. The consequences of letting these differences trigger us can be significant. We see it all the time: miscommunication, stress, and even the breakdown of relationships. But what if we choose to listen instead of react? By understanding where the other person is coming from, we might find that their perspective isn't so threatening after all. It's just different. Understanding this can help us see that disagreement isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about understanding where the other person is coming from. Now let's take it a step further. What if accepting others, even when they don't share all our beliefs, could lead to a happier life? Do we always need everyone to hold on to the exact same beliefs as us to feel happy or secure? Think about it. When we accept that others can have different opinions, it takes a huge weight off our shoulders. We don't have to spend so much energy trying to convince everyone to see things our way. Instead, we can focus on what really matters: our own happiness and well-being. So ask yourself, do you need everyone to agree with you to be happy? Or is there room in your life for other opinions, even if they're different from yours? It's a liberating feeling to know that it's okay to disagree and still get along. After all, the world would be pretty damn boring if we all thought exactly the same thing all the time. And speaking of getting along, the next time you run into someone with a different belief, try listening before you react. It's easy to let our emotions take control and close our ears, but what if we choose to listen instead? You might find that understanding where the other person is coming from doesn't threaten your own beliefs. It just adds to your perspective. So the next time you feel that urge to jump in and argue, take a breath and let them talk. You never know what you might learn by just listening. All right, now that we've talked about the importance of challenging our beliefs, let's put it into practice with a potentially conversational topic. Remember, the goal here isn't to change your mind, but to encourage thoughtful reflection. I'm about to throw a hand grenade into this conversation. I know this is a lightning rod subject that's bound to get a reaction, but it's important to talk about it, especially for those of us over 65 who've seen the world change in so many ways. We've learned that dealing with tough issues means being open to new perspectives, even when it's uncomfortable. So here it goes. Does the Bible accept people who might be homosexual, or are they all bad and going to hell? Now, you might think you know the answer, but let's pause for a moment and really look at what the Bible says. Let's think about the relationship between Jesus and God. Christians believe Jesus is God's Son, sent to earth to show us how to live according to God's will. And what did Jesus do? He showed love, compassion, and understanding to all people, especially those who were pushed to the edges of society. He hung out with tax collectors, prostitutes, and others who were seen as unworthy. Remember the lepers? But here's the kicker. While the Old Testament has passages that some interpret as condemning homosexuality, Jesus himself never spoke against it. Instead, he focused on love and inclusion. So if we're meant to follow God's guidance, how can we ignore the way Jesus treated others, especially those who were marginalized? Now, I know this might make some of you very, very uncomfortable, and that's okay. This isn't about telling you what to believe, but encouraging you to think for yourself. So, how are you feeling about what I just said? Did it make you uncomfortable? Do you have a knee-jerk reaction thinking I'm all wrong? Or maybe you're willing to think about it, do a little research, and come to your own conclusion. For those of us with a bit more life experience, we know it takes courage to question what we've always been told and to think for ourselves. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just accept what someone else says, whether it's from the pulpit, a book, or even some stupid video like this one. Real growth comes from unraveling the power of beliefs, examining them closely, and deciding whether they truly serve us. This process of belief transformation is how we challenge what no longer fits and embrace what truly empowers us. And just to be clear, I'm using this as one example from one religion. I'm not saying this is the only valid belief system out there. Every faith, every belief deserves the same thoughtful consideration. So, are you up for the challenge? Are you ready to look beyond the surface and really seek out the truth? Well, it's easy to stick with what's comfortable, but real growth often comes from stepping out of that comfort zone and re-examining what we think we know. So, I encourage you, don't take my word for it. Do your own research, explore the context, and see what conclusions you come to. Maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than we've all been told. Next, we'll talk about how being open to different interpretations can help us grow in our understanding of faith and humanity. So here's a twist. What if we looked at disagreements not as a problem, but as an opportunity? I know it sounds like I've lost my damn mind, but hear me out. When we engage with different opinions, we challenge our own thinking, and sometimes we even grow a bit. It's like going through instrument training. It's tough, but it makes you a much, much better pilot. So the next time you find yourself in a heated debate, whether it's about sports, religion, or the correct way to load a dishwasher, try to remember that it's okay to have different opinions. You don't have to convince everyone to see things your way, and they don't have to convince you either. It's entirely possible to walk away from a disagreement with your dignity and your relationship intact. In fact, agreeing to disagree might just be the key to a more peaceful and understanding world. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today on the Old Guy Insights channel and for listening to these stories about the importance of agreeing to disagree. Remember, I'm just a boomer old fart, sharing advice and challenging beliefs and embracing belief transformation. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just here to encourage you to think for yourself and maybe see things from a new angle. After all, what fun would it be if we all thought exactly the same way? Boring. Before I wrap up, I have a challenge for you. This week, when you encounter a viewpoint different from your own, try to understand it rather than immediately disagreeing. Listen before you talk. And then come back and let me know how it went. Let us know in the comments. If you haven't already done so, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Your support really helps out this old pilot. And with that, as I always told air traffic control, see ya!